Hello and welcome to Tonight at 8. The RSGB recently hosted a special poll to find out what new and returning licensees would most like to see a webinar about, and contesting was one of the top requests. So tonight we're very pleased to welcome Lee Volante, G0MTN, who's going to bring us an introduction to contesting. Welcome to Tonight at 8, Lee. Can you give us a quick preview of what you'll be talking about this evening?
Thanks, David. Good evening, everybody. So I've got a brand new presentation for you this evening, focusing essentially for anyone that hasn't entered a contest before. So assuming nothing, right from the ground up, all of the basics and the fundamentals about why we do contesting and what makes it so fun. So we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, very much looking forward to it. Thank you very much, Lee. And before your presentation, a reminder that if you're watching this on Monday, the 2nd of October, then this is live and you can ask questions and make comments on either YouTube chat or BATC messaging at any time during the presentation or straight afterwards. Please include your first name and call sign if you have one within every message. And note that you can make this video stream fill your screen on most devices, usually by double clicking on the picture or pressing the full screen button. Now, back to Lee for an introduction to contesting.
Thanks again, David, and also to Tammy, who's there behind the scenes at Mission Control, making me look good. So no thanks, guys. Okay, so let's have some fun with an introduction to contesting this evening. So warm welcome from myself. So as David said there, my mission that to come from Heather, the RSGB Communications manager in a sort of Mission Impossible style, was to go through the fundamentals of contesting, have something that is pitched at the complete beginner and not be too complex. So hopefully we can meet that brief this evening. So we'll go through the nuts and bolts of the what, the why, the how of contesting. How does it all work? And answer those questions that some people ask, say, do you need to register to take part? No. And the perennial question that pops up from newcomers is, how do I find out my serial number that is often talked about? So we'll come to all of that later. So if you have previously, say, entered a few contests, or you are, say, pretty comfortable with it, there may not be, say, too much that I'll be able to share that'll be brand new to you this evening, but would certainly recommend, if you do have any friends, any, say, local club members, anyone that has perhaps expressed an interest in contesting before, but hasn't yet taken the plunge, maybe point them in the direction of this presentation, and hopefully it will help them on their journey. Okay, so whilst researching, and I was very conscious that there have been, say, several other contesting related presentations on the Tonight at 8 format previously. So in the spring this year, had a great overview of microwave contesting by Barry, G4SJH. So that's certainly one to check out again. Also, I think last year my good friend Mark, M0DXR, had presented on the fun world of contesting, pushing the boundaries. And I helped out a little with that one, which is another reason whilst we've got all new material this evening. And also, last but not least, say just a few weeks ago, Peter G3ZPB was here talking about with a whole session on the Minos, or is it Minos, contesting software. I do recall there was some debate on the pronunciation of Minos, but that was a good presentation for that one. So we'll try to complement all of that, but again tonight with the focus on newcomers and beginners. So we'll look at what is a contest, why is it appealing, why have I done this for several decades now. We'll look through the mechanics, the nuts and bolts of a contest contact on HF and VHF. We'll look at contest equipment, operating preferences, and then trying to go through a first contest from start to finish, and then look at, say, next steps. If this seems to be a fun activity that you'd like to carry on with, how could you then continue with that? And then, say, leaving some time for questions and answers if there are any. So there we go. So HF and VHF contesting, there's many similarities. There's much in common between HF and VHF contesting, although I think that there are still quite a few fundamental differences. So I will try to cover both ends of the HF and VHF spectrum tonight, but there will be some parts that would maybe lean more on one end of the spectrum to another. Okay then, so what is contesting? So yeah, don't take my word for it. Yeah, we could pop along to Wikipedia, and there's actually a very long and a very well written or well edited article now on contesting, and so their opening paragraph just describes it as a competitive activity pursued by amateur radio operators, and in the contest operated either individually or as a team. Seek to contact as many other amateur stations as possible in a given period of time and exchange some information. The contacts made contribute to a score, and then we have a ranking to see who has won, and then who are in the different positions, and the different sponsors will then publish those results. And yep, it goes into a lot more detail, so that's a very good article to check out as well later on. So we know that it's a competition, it's a race, also sometimes known as radio sport. I know some people may scoff at the idea of contesting being a sporting activity, but I can certainly tell you from personal experience of trying to operate for nigh on 48 hours at a stretch, it is very physically and mentally draining. So I think the moniker is well deserved. Contests are organised by national societies a lot of the time. So there's a whole suite organised by the RSGB, and also the sister organisations representing other countries, such as the ARRL representing the USA, DARC for Germany, and many others. Other groups, such as magazines, so the CQ magazine organise the famous CQ Worldwide contests on HF and also VHF throughout the year, and other groups such as the CW Ops, BARTAG, and individuals will organise contests as well. You can find contests on the majority of the HF bands from 1.8 through to 28 megahertz, but you won't find contests on VLF, 5 megs or 10, 18 and 24 megahertz, because originally these were not perhaps open to all, or they have, as I say, fairly short chunks of spectrum allocated to them, so perhaps it wouldn't be fair or sociable to organise contest activities here. On the VHF front, the contests are organised for all VHF and UHF bands, and with 1.3 gigs as our straddle point between VHF, UHF and microwave, where the contests go up to 76 gigahertz as well, but maybe with the split of the organising teams and parties who are arranging those contests. But yeah, we'll focus on HF and VHF tonight. Contests, so however you choose to partake your amateur radio on air, there'll be a contest in the mode for you. So commonly on voice, both on single sideband and FM. Morse code, still very popular for contesting, and also data modes as well, with the old school RTTY still being very popular, PSK, as well as the more modern FT4 and FT8 also having many events raised for them. And contests come in all shapes and sizes. The shortest event I think I could find was just say 30 minutes in duration, so very quickly, very easy to fit into a busy schedule, right up to the large marathon events, which may be 48 hours long, but those then do give a chance to experience all forms of propagation throughout the day. Majority of contests are held at the weekend, but also in recent years there have been an increase of weekday contests as well, and again the idea here is to help them fit around busy schedules. So there are calendars of events. We'll come on to this later, so you can try to find out what sort of events may be popular for, or maybe you may be interested in yourself. And as well as that, there are many specialist and niche events. So there are contests for Earth, Moon, Earth, or Moon Bounce. There was one organised by the Italian National Society just last weekend. I did want to say that I'd taken part in that one, but the weather in my neck of the woods sadly put paid to that. There are slow scan TV contests, and also I remember a question that had come up in Mark M0DXR's tonight at 8 presentation, asking if there were contests via satellite. And I think as far as I could see, yes, there are via the QO100 sat, but I guess similar to the lack of contests on the likes of 10 megs, where satellite is a restricted resource or with a limited bandwidth, then perhaps it's sensible that there's not too much contest activity there. Okay, so how did all these contests start? So I think we have to look back, I think over 100 years now, to the original transatlantic tests that were run in the 1920s. So this was for the first time when we were trying to bridge the Atlantic on shortwave, and that was a successful project. So you can see there the cover of QST from back in the day, and of course it wasn't so long ago we had the centenary of this, and the events organised by the RSGB and the ARRL to commemorate. So the 1920s events, say for a structured activity, seemed to be popular. So these continued as annual events, and the ARRL then changed the format slightly, and just were encouraging stations to make as many contacts with the stations in other countries as possible. And straight away there, it's starting to sound like a regular contest. And the 1928 International Relay Party was the first organised amateur radio contest. A few years later, it changed its name to the ARRL DX contest, and that contest is still going strong today in the springtime. But what was the point of the contest? As it was to help to gauge station performance. So originally for those tests, which stations, which antennas were making it across the Atlantic, and also to test operating skills. Can you pick out messages from the noise? How quickly, how efficiently, how accurately can you change them, exchange them? So there was a good, rationale and a skills element as well to the contest before it became just purely an entertainment or a competitive activity. Okay, so how does a contest work? So each contact that we make whilst the contest is running will score a number of points. Those points may vary by distance, depending on how far away the other station is, maybe what country the other station is in, their locator square, their zone, or many other things. So the key takeaway here is that it's more important to make contacts quickly, but also accurately. So just speaking quickly or sending Morse code quickly may not actually give you the accuracy, or it may not get you through the contacts as quickly or efficiently as you might like. So there's a certain skill in there. And many contests also have the notion of multipliers, which usually count per band. So a multiplier may be, say, the first contact that you make in a particular country, or per grid square, or per call sign prefix, or where the world is broken up into zones. It may be your age or your iota square, if it's, say, the islands on the air contest. Excuse me. The points from these contacts made are then multiplied by the multiplier total from those contacts for an overall score. So the headline here is that we want to reward the operator skill and the station performance. So if you can contact lots of different DXCC entities around the globe, or on VHF, if you can contact, say, a very large number of Maidenhead locator squares, work all ends of the UK and into the continent, that's a greater skill, it's a greater achievement than maybe just working all of your local neighbours. And so knowing when and where and how, and being able to construct and then operate a station that has this high performance is then worth those extra multipliers, which is all important for the final score. Contest may also be single band or multi-band, and maybe also be a single mode or multi-mode as well. So on VHF, it's quite common to have, say, single band contests, most of which may be on SSB, but there can be some CW as well. Whereas on HF, it's more common to have a multi-band contest across most of the HF spectrum. And you can contact those stations then, perhaps say once per band, or also once per mode. And then within that, there's several further subdivisions to suit operator preferences to allow a wide range of stations to be competitive. So if you only have, say, a QRP station, or you only have, say, a fairly restricted antenna system, you wouldn't necessarily, per se, be competing with everyone that has a big tower, lots of antennas, and a linear amplifier. So there's usually categories to choose from within the overall multi-band or multi-mode contest. So the overall timeline, so to start with, say the rules are normally published maybe up to, say, 12 months in advance by the contest sponsor, and those are published online. Entrants will then, say, plan and prepare their activity. The contest itself then happens. Then very soon after the end of the contest, entrants will submit their log of contacts to the organizer. The organizer will then collate all of those contest logs, cross-check them for accuracy and rescore them, and then publish the results. And then all of the entrants will then be, say, looking forward to seeing if they win a certificate or maybe even a trophy for their efforts. So why do we do it? And say number one point for me is that it's fun. It's generated some lifetime friendships, and it's great to have some other, say, like-minded amateurs that love contest activity, love talking about contesting, preparing for contests, getting together for multi-operator events, maybe going away and traveling somewhere to operate a contest. And it's those memories that have really created some strong bonds. And also it's certainly helped me to become a more skilled operator. Certainly, so working through weak signals and QRM and doing that, trying to be fairly strict and regimented, has certainly helped me to become a more skilled operator, and that has then helped out for DXing or whatever else I'm doing away from contests. And it increases activity on the bands. And for everyone in the comments about to turn into keyboard warriors, please note the asterisk. So a lot of the time, I think we'll recognise that our spectrum, certainly away from the data mode sections, can be quiet. And anything that we can do to generate more sideband, more CW activity on the bands, and especially on the VHF bands, which can be even more quiet than HF at times, is a good thing to show the world and to show the regulators that we do use and need the spectrum. So there are times, but maybe not quite as many as people might say, that the bands are chock-a-block full of contesters. But usually it would only be on, say, one mode at once. There are always the non-contest bands. And for the example of the fairly major UKEI DX contests on SSB this last weekend, where there were loads and loads of UK contesters active, in the middle of the afternoon, so the contest activity was sharing the band, say, quite nicely on 40 meters, with other folks, say doing a bit of SOTA or POTA, or just having a chat with their friends. So contesting can work. So I think sometimes it can get a bit of a bad press. And also importantly, I think contesting provides a structured activity to measure progress. So whilst radioing and going on the club net is fantastic, anything we do in amateur radio is all good. There's nothing better than anything else. I think lots of us like to have some sort of structure to our activity, which is why we do chase awards or do the SOTA and the POTA, or do DXing to collect DXCC. But with contesting, it's got a known and fixed time requirement. So if I was more worried about my DXing now, I think I'd want to be there on the bands, as I'd always be missing something. But with the contest, you don't need to worry about it. You can put it in the family kitchen planner to say, last weekend in October, I would like to do this as a contest. And then you don't need to worry about so much about missing things on the other times. And also, whilst you are contesting, even if you're not taking contests too seriously, you can certainly use the investment made by the big contest stations, who will then make an extra effort to pick out weak signals from anyone else. It becomes much easier to achieve a DXCC award, work tool states, IOTA, work tool zones, etc., or the VHF awards similarly, by being active in a good many contests, so you can easily work up those rarer call signs. Excuse me, I'll just take a drink. So let's go through some example contest contacts. So again, as I said earlier, I don't mean to patronize or be condescending, but I think there are some subtleties, and maybe it's not quite as obvious how to make a contest contact and how to make it go efficiently. So on HF sideband, we'd probably hear a station calling CQ contest, Golf 0 Mike Tango November, Golf 0 Mike Tango November contest. So we'll have use of phonetics there just to make sure that we can be well understood, and there won't be a long CQ, 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 as it's not then helping, it's not exchanging any more information. If you're calling in, the world famous M1 ABC, not to be confused with Steve, M1 ACB, who should be on the live chat, will call in. So just call in once with your own call sign, not the other call sign, and please use phonetics. Station will reply, hopefully, M1 ABC 59034. So if signals are good, there's no need for phonetics now. There'll be a report, which for HF is always 5 and 9, just because this has just become a long-standing part of contesting for HF. And the 5 and 9, then it just gives your brain half a second to check that M1 ABC, oh, okay, is calling me, and now I need to get ready for the information that is being sent, the important serial number. And that is just the number of contacts that we've had in the contest so far, starting from 1, typically with maybe with some leading zeros, your 59001 or 591, and then it will just increment. So you might get 59034, and in other contests there may be other postcodes or islands or other details sent as well. But for most contests, it may be just a serial number. We can then just reply with the report and your own serial number starting from number 1. So 59012. And then you'll get a quick thanks, and then straight on, Golf 0 Mike Tango November contest. So you'll notice that in all the exchanges, we've not said the other station's call sign. This has just been, say, the bare minimum. So most of the time there isn't confusion, and this then helps with the efficiency and the speed of the contest. So again, for HFCW, this is a very, very similar. So no long CQCQ. Contest is abbreviated to test. just call in with your own call sign once, call at whatever speed you're comfortable with. So good contest operators should recognize when someone is calling, say, much slower than themselves, and also slow down. And they will then respond to you. Instead of 599, the nines will become abbreviated because the dit can take a long time to send. So it just becomes 5NN, dit, and then sending that serial number, the leading 0, rather than have 5 dashes, may become a single dash or a T to save time, or that leading 0 may be left out entirely. Again, just send your own report back, reply with the report and serial number, 5NN for 599, T12 for 12. Then you'll just get a very brief to you, maybe, thanks, and then onwards to the next contact. And then for VHF, as it's a slightly different there, so I'm just suggesting maybe there'll be a slightly longer CQ, and maybe also you give a locator square as well. And what I'm saying here isn't gospel. I'm not saying it's the right way. There'll be others on the chat saying I do things differently and I think it works better, which is absolutely fine. So this is just a sample way to do things that certainly works. And again, you can say listen to others and find maybe what works best for you. Mike 1 Alpha Bravo Charlie is calling in. So again, and just send your own call sign once maybe, unless asked otherwise. Now we're giving our report back again, and serial number, now with a Maidenhead locator square as well. Repeat that with your own locator square, and then carrying on with a brief thanks, and then carrying on. So simple when it all works, and again, you may be asked for repeats, but yeah, just be guided by the station you're calling. Okay, so as I say, try to maximize efficiency. Only say and send what is needed. So in the UKEI where I was at the weekend, maybe some people were typing in what I was sending them, and they were like reading back my own report to me, which perhaps isn't needed, or we don't need to send our own call signs many times. So there's lots of different ways to make the exchange efficient. There's also lots of time after the contest to share greetings and swap notes. So maybe a quick hello, Bob, if there's time for it. But if you're waiting to call, it can be very frustrating if then the contest station you want to call it then starts to have a chat with someone, as after all it's meant to be a competitive activity. So don't worry if the contact fails or you're asked to repeat details. Just yeah, do your best, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't matter. You can always try again later or another day. So yeah, never be afraid of calling in. And yeah, and just to repeat on CW, please send at whatever speed you're comfortable with. Okay, so I think I like to refer to this as then the CQ timer. So think that you're at a fast food restaurant or maybe a bar or something, and you're then calling for the next customer. So as soon as you finish a CQ contest and then the PTT drops, that is then the invitation for the next customer. But as soon as you start to call CQ again, or you call somebody else, imagine a stopwatch starting, and then anyone else that would just tuned on to the frequency or was just, say, second in the queue and wasn't quite heard, they're there twiddling their thumbs. So you want to try to get through the one contact or go back to calling CQ or getting to the end of that CQ as efficiently and quickly as possible. And when you do it right, you can get up to, say, the rates of maybe 10 QSOs per minute. Yep, and that's to say 1 every 6 seconds. So just a log snippet here on Morse code from Dan N6NJ operating a big superstation in Costa Rica. So you might notice here, if you've got good eyesight, that Dan's operating on 2 bands at once. So that's one way to maximise the efficiency, but we'll save that for one of the advanced classes, or go and check out Mark M0DXR's presentation. Okay, so on to contest equipment. So if you've looked online or looked in some of the magazines, maybe you'll have seen that you think, don't I need, say, expensive specialist equipment, big towers, amplifiers, and maybe a large overdraft? So maybe, but I'd say to start with, say, use what you have, and just remember that everything works. Yes, even a VHF handheld that maybe only costs you £10 or £20. So yes, really. So the RSGB run contests on 2 meters FM regularly, the FM activity contests, and you can look through the results there, and yeah, every now and again you see that, yeah, someone was using a handheld, they'd swapped it out to a slightly larger whip antenna than the stock antenna, but coming in a very credible sort of 8th place out of 20, just operating battery power with a handheld that could fit in their pocket. So admittedly here, presumably, yep, the station will have had to go on a nice little walk into the hills, get some fresh air, enjoy the evening sunset, etc. But it just goes to show that, yeah, everything you have, you can find a contest and have fun and do well in it. Or then swinging across to HF, I recall an article that was in the ARRL QST magazine showing Tom N6BT achieving the worked all continents on HFCW using that light bulb there shown on the right as an antenna. So it's a fun article of how his adventures with that one, but the intent was to show that everything works. And if you think you've only got a scrappy bit of wire in your back garden, or maybe just something that's thrown in the loft because you can't have any outside antennas, that's still going to be better than Tom's light bulb. And you should have, say, increased fun and success with that. So I think never be put off by what you think you have for your equipment. For VHF and UHF, I think the majority of events are on SSB. And therefore, for reasons we've not really got time to go into this evening, older transceivers may have better performance than the newer ones. So that's good if you think you've maybe only got an aging rig. Horizontally polarized Yagi beam antennas are pretty standard on VHF, not exclusively. So you can still take part with collinears, Moxons, etc. But yeah, to aim for a beam if you can. And then essentially it'll then be a decision time to say, do you want to operate from home if you're set up for that? Then you can perhaps start to use and build upon existing equipment, or maybe take the plunge and start to operate portable. And then you need to consider to say, if you are going out and about, the ease of setup, portability of equipment, how are you going to power your equipment, what's the best portable location to find, and perhaps almost most importantly, keeping safe whilst you're out and about, whilst having fun. Just as my backdrop there, just to try and make the slide a little more exciting, is the Hey What's That website. So if you've not come across that before, I guess for VHF, but also HF, it's a great website, so you can start to work out what are your best takeoff points or one of those hills in the distance. So do check that one out after. Now swapping back to HF, I think there'll be a greater mix of events on different modes and bands. It's usually less portable operation than at VHF, but that will all depend on your own personal circumstances and your preferences. But essentially at HF, it's all about the antennas. What wires you have, what verticals, what beam antennas you may be able to put together. So I think, yeah, antennas for contesting, I think, could be a whole presentation in itself. We've not got time for that tonight, but as luck would have it, I was there at last year's RSGB convention, so do look out for antennas for an effective contest station on YouTube, unless you really do say not like the sound of my voice. But yeah, that can be another interesting thing to look at as well. Quick plug for that. And then something I've taken from that presentation quickly was again just showing that antennas can still be relatively low and effective. Looking here at the results from a 80-meter club championship contest, I plotted the entrance antenna height against their score, and I was saying effectively we've got say 3 main groups of entrants. There's the folks that have got antennas above 60 feet, and there's not too many of those, but they tend to do relatively well. And then there's the second group with antennas between 18 and just over 30 feet, which make up the majority of the entrants. And it was just to highlight that even with an antenna at only about 24 feet, or anyone say within this group, you can certainly make it into the top 10 or the top 10% of entrants. So you don't need to have super high antennas in this particular contest. And also then the third group, it was either entrants whose antenna fell down or presumably a ground mounted vertical, which just to show that perhaps they're not the most efficient antennas. So if you can pick some wire antennas, that should work better. Excuse me. So again, more decisions to make. So there's lots of different ways that you can operate in a contest. So again, do you operate at home? Do you have a shack at home? You think that would be worthwhile for you? Might you have a friend's station or a club station you could operate at? Or would you choose to go portable? Is there, say, a friendly local farmer's field that you could borrow every now and again? Or some, say, roadside lay-by that is safe and accessible. Would you prefer to operate as a single op, or maybe with a group, learn and have fun together? And again, depending on your HF or VHF preferences, or both, there's plenty of choices for you. And again, on all the different modes that we spoke about earlier on. So picking an event, so there are contest calendars available in radio magazines such as the RSGB Radcom, and also online. So every month in Radcom, Ian, G0MTN, collates a contest calendar for the coming month for the RSGB HF events, the VHF events, and also the best of the rest, say the most popular worldwide events from other sponsors. So listing the times, the bands, the modes, and also say the different types of exchanges. So RST, there's a serial number, which ones have locators or different exchanges to share. Also, please do check out rsgbcc.org for the RSGB Contest Committee. You can see the previous results there, as well as the calendar and rules. So just here's an example. So this is lots of information here. So you can start to look at what antennas are being used, what radios, and then maybe set yourself a target. Say for a first contest, it would be, can I just finish the contest? Does everything survive? Do my batteries not run out? Do I not lose my voice, etc.? And then building up from that, do better than last time. Can I be the best with a similar setup? Aim for the top half of the table, and then start aiming for those podium positions. Outside of RSGB, so another online calendar is the WA7BNM contest calendar, which lists many contests each week. Some of these may be, say, specific or localized, maybe in the US. So maybe from the UK, you might not hear too much activity, but it does give you an idea of what choice there is. And then you can go to their websites and then find out the results and the rules, and then see if that might be something that interests you. As first contests, I might suggest, say, the UK activity contests. So there's lots of those. And again, you could start off with the FM ones or the SSB ones. They're short events, just a few hours, and you can operate fixed or portable. For HF, maybe say the counterpart, weekday, short duration club championships and autumn series. So I think they are accessible, but at times they can be a little hectic and fast paced. So maybe some of the weekend, quieter weekend contests may be better. And again, the contests where everyone can work everyone else can be, say, fairly frantic indeed. But there are also many national society contests where you can only work stations from that country. So e.g. the first one, the SAC, you can just work contact stations in Scandinavia, or the RAF for the French society. You can only work French stations and the territories. Worked all Germany, work the Germans, SPDX, work the Polish stations, which makes it perhaps a little easier to get through. And for certainly any of these European-based contests, simple antennas and 100 watts or less is certainly competitive, and the pace is a little more relaxed. So going back in time now, but this is one of my old original logbooks, or one of the first ones from 1992. Originally, we would have been logging on paper as well as our main log, and then sending off those to the contest sponsor. As we move forward with computers, we were then logging on computer and then sending floppy disks through the post to the adjudicator. And I've been an adjudicator during this era, and getting all sorts of interesting paper and discs in post. But these days, everything is done online. And so the vast majority, like 99% now surely, of contest operating is done with computer contest logging software. It's a specialist maybe from your everyday logger, as it will do, say, the scoring and duplicate checking for you. It knows the rules, and also at the end of the contest, it will produce a contest log for you to send off in a standardized format, which is what you'll need. So essentially, you can get by with a minimal functionality, certainly to start with, but then as you get more experienced, you can add radio control, rotator control, have the software send your voice and CW messages for you, and then you can connect to the DX cluster and have, say, networked multi-operator stations. But still, start up simply and then carry on. So as we are running out of time, and I'll aim to wrap up shortly, so I will then say refer back to Peter's excellent presentation on Minos or Minos, which says it does work for both RSGB, VHF and HF contests. So he had, let's say, the whole session to go through the details of that. For HF, there are again, say, many choices and some free choices as well. M1MM Plus is the most popular. Also, there's DX log. Minos has growing support too, and WinTest is also popular. So I wasn't brave enough, and there was no time to go through and say do a N1MM setup live, but you can certainly go to the website. They are at pains to try to help you through that. There's a whole suite of instructions for getting started, how to download the software and how to set it up. You can even watch a video of the download and install process, so that they really will try to make it as painless for anyone that may not be particularly comfortable with computer software. But I just took some screen grabs so you can install the executable, set it to run, and then for a first time through, you would just add some of your station data, so identify your call sign, maybe your location, in the configuration menu that we have there. Slow down a little bit. And then you'd say, file, I want to log a new contest, please. You would then pick from a big list which contest you would like to enter, fill in the details, which should be straightforward. Are you a single operator? what is your power level, etc. And then you'd be presented with a logging window. And the idea of the logging software is that it's meant to replicate or be very similar to the paper logbook of old, or what some of the older operators or earlier operators may have been, say, originally more familiar with. If you're doing a single band contest, such as those club championships or autumn series, you only need to worry about, say, changing the band once. So you could just type in 3750, I'm going to be operating on 80 meter sideband, and that would then appear in the very top left of the window. And from then you can just start typing in a call sign that you work. We know that all of the reports are going to be 5 and 9, so we don't need to worry about changing those. So you can just press the space bar. It will move between the information that you would enter, the other person's call sign, and the serial number that they will give you. And your sent serial number will start from 1, and then for each contact that you make, it will then increment. So just trying to make things as simple as possible. So you can space toggle between the two main fields, or you could use tab, and again tab between the other fields as well. And then as you press return, say in another window, then it will start to populate a log that would look then very much like, say, an old paper logbook. If you do make a mistake and want to correct something, you can just go with your mouse, double click on the field that was wrong, and then make some changes. If you do then come across the same station again, as you start to type in their call sign, it will then highlight that you've worked that contact before, and if you have contacts on different bands and you change the frequency, it would say the same appropriately. And then as you go on, you can steadily add more functionality and information, and then you can turn, say, your whole computer into a NASA mission control desktop. But it's not there just to look good. As you get more experienced, this extra information then helps you work out if you're meant to be, or it would be preferable to be on different bands, or if you should be so trying to ask a station you're contacting if they'd like to work you somewhere else, or if there's someone else elsewhere in the band that you've not contacted yet. But again, that's not for beginners. Don't let that put you off, but it just goes to show where it goes next. So I appreciate that I'd never have time, say, to go into that in detail. So as well as the video by the N1MMM team themselves, there are many others that you can find on YouTube that will go through with the setup of N1MM or DXlog as well. There's lots of resources out there. Final things, then we need to, say, generate a file. So you can generate a file for HF. It's be called Cabrio, so you can look for that. And also you can produce an ADIF file if you have a general everyday logger to import into your regular logbook. The Cabrio format, which is pronounced Cabrio because it's from the Iberian Explorer. It looks like this in this format. And for VHF contests, there are, say, separate preferred log formats as well. And for a VHF contest logger, it will produce a separate format that'll be acceptable. From there, we then would go on to the sponsor's website. So for an RSGB contest, you'd become familiar with this dialog very quickly. You can pick which contest you are entering, fill out some details, then choose to upload your log file, fill out some more details, which may be pre-populated from the Cabrio if you had entered that earlier on. And then with just a few minutes of typing, your log will be submitted, and then you're in the running. Afterwards, so for RSGB, VHF and UHF contests, you'll be presented with a link which will show you a very nice heat map of your contacts, so you can see where you were, which is always nice to see. You can say compare that with later contests, or compare with your friends. How did you get on? And then maybe after a few weeks or maybe a month or two, depending on the contest, or maybe even just after 24 hours, at the other extreme, the results will be presented. And then you can see who else was in your category, how did you do, and then, yeah, did the other station have more contacts? Did they have more multipliers? Did they work more squares? Or did they work more countries on different bands? There's lots and lots of information that you can find. And then for lots of RSGB events, you can then say click the button and download yourself a very nice certificate that you can print out and put up on the shack wall, which is a nice reminder, a memento of your activity. Also, you'll see, as well as the results, you'll hear about UBN, which is an American term, come from unique, busted, and not in log. So this is where we're working out why we had some points deducted, or why we didn't get all of the points we thought we would for the contest. So in many contests, if you are the only person to contact a particular station, that is classed as unique contact, and oftentimes it's disallowed. Largely because if you think there's hundreds or thousands of people sometimes in a contest, and it would be quite strange that you were the only person that they contacted. More likely then, instead of being a unique call sign, it was one that you copied incorrectly. Busted, which is again the American term, or broken, as we might say in the UK, is where, again, you've miscopied a call sign, but with the cross-checking of the logs, the contest sponsor knows that it's broken, and that's what the correct call sign should be. And that's an example of some of my errors there, just showing on screen. Or not in log, that's where you think that you've worked a station, the other station also sends in their log, but you're not in their log for whatever reason. Maybe they didn't hear you, or there was some just interference, and they didn't think that the contest was finished. So that's how some contest points get deducted, and why sometimes the final placings can change. Also from the RSGB contest committee website, oftentimes you can look at, say, your results over time compared with other people, and then you can start to see, was your strategy good? And for those close races, it's like a real horse race where the first places may swap time and time again over the course of the event. So this was, let's say, a 12-hour activity in the 24. So Don operating G5W, I think essentially operated the first 12 hours. I operated in different breaks. I almost caught up, but no, there was no way I was going to quite come out on top in that one. But still, it was a good race. So then, as we do come to the end, yeah, I am keeping an eye on the clock, so I'll be wrapping up in a couple of minutes. So those next steps, it's about, yeah, improving your confidence on air, getting more experience, and improving your operating skills. Looking at your station and your antennas, both at home or in the field. What could you feel you could improve? What are your competitors using as well? Or just spend some time listening to different contesters and just, yes, see how other people do things. Always make it just to try to do better than last time. It doesn't matter if you don't win or you're not in the top half. Essentially, you're always just competing against yourself. So always try to bear that in mind. And if you do go multi-operator, yeah, do try to give that a try. It can be fun, but maybe not like in the picture where my daughter was taking over. So that's it. And then final points to say there are other resources. You can go out on groups.io as email reflectors for both the UK VHF and HF communities. It's a good place to reach out there. With email support, talking about different events that are coming up when results are published. Also on VHF, there's a very lively Facebook group, nice and friendly. They'll be, say, sharing their activity maps afterwards. So there's good camaraderie on this group. So please check that out if you're VHF minded. And also for final plug for anyone watching this live or on catch up in the near future, RSGB contest committee members will be at the RSGB convention in the special interests area in a couple of weeks' time. And they've said specifically, they'll be very happy to have a chat to anyone who's just starting out and wants to ask any questions. So if you're going that way, please do look them up in the special interests area. And I think with that, yes, so just shy of the hour, I've just about kept to time. So with that, I'll pass it back to David, and we'll see if there are any questions. But if you stayed with me this long, thanks very much for watching, and I hope at least some of it was useful and interesting to you. So enjoy your contesting.
Well, thank you, Lee, and thanks for a great overview of contesting. So for you at home, if you've any questions or comments you'd like to share and haven't already done so, please do it now on either YouTube chat or BATC messaging, and please don't forget to include your first name and your call sign if you have one. The first point I saw a little while ago was this from John MI0WGX. Could you both discuss the process of applying for a special contest call sign, please? Could you both discuss it? Maybe me as well. I know a little bit about it, but I hope you'll know much more than me.
Okay, thanks, David, and thank you, John, for your question. So a special contest call sign is a short contest call sign that you can have as a variation to your own to use only in contests. And for that, because there is only a limited number of them, so you do need to show that you are keen in contests and have entered, say, some particular contests and had a certain number of contacts relative to the leader in your section. But actually it's not, say, very onerous at all. I think I'm not aware of anyone that has tried to qualify for a short contest call sign and not been able to achieve it. And I know this also came up in Mark's presentation, and there is a link. I think it's something like it's either rsgb.org.uk or rsgb.org. It might be just /SCC, but there is a dedicated web page to it. Or I'm sure if you just Google RSGB SCC, it will come up, and there is a dedicated page just showing the process and the procedure for that. So sorry, I don't have all of the details, but hopefully that will steer you in the right direction, John.
No, that's all right, Lee. Thank you. And in fact, I've got colleagues in the background here. I'm sure I'll be able to put these, find this link for us, and I'll read that out for everybody shortly as soon as we get it. There is one other thing, if I can extend from just a tiny bit of experience I've had. My own club wanted to apply for a club call sign, contest call sign recently, G0MTN. And what was the surprise is what you need to qualify for that. It isn't always necessarily all contests, so not all contests will apply, will give you a qualification for it. However, what we did, and just to share this for hopefully help others, is that what we did was several members of the club had the qualifying wins that meant that they could combine them, and it meant that meant the club could apply for this particular call sign. So if it's an individual one, I'm sure you have to do them yourself, but if it's a club contest call sign that you want, then you can apply for it that way and get other people who've got the right qualification. So does that make sense, Lee? Does that help?
Yeah. No, that's super, fantastic. Yes, so lots of different ways. So there's always a way forward.
Yeah, lovely. And I have had it confirmed that you were right, and the link to find out more about how to apply is rsgb.org/SCC, Sierra Charlie Charlie. So rsgb.org/Sierra Charlie Charlie will get you to applying for the contest call. I hope that's helped you, John. Next question from Steve M1SDH says, I do enjoy taking part in HF contests, but in a casual way. I put it along at my own pace, maybe only for a couple of hours, and put in a check log. Great to pick up new DXCCs, work some DX, and have fun. And just to follow on that, I did have someone ask, and I'll go over to this now. Chloe M0GEJ, hello Chloe. She says, what in general is the difference in process of submitting a check log as opposed to an actual contest log? So maybe you could cover that.
Okay, thanks, David. So, yep, thanks, Steve, and also Chloe. So, the mechanism of submitting, say, a contest entry or a check log would be exactly the same. So, from your contest logger, you would produce a contest log. If it's on HF, it would be in that Cabrillo format, and then you would go to the contest sponsor's website for submitting an entry, and you would just say click on the option that say this is a check log that I am submitting. So if you submit a check log, that then helps the sponsor to do the cross-checking, because they've then got the data from you, so that then helps with their adjudication process. So if you are, say, just pootling around, as Steve said, enjoying making a few contacts, but say not really taking part actively, it's still beneficial to send in a check log. But I would say that if you're active on the air, then why not send in a real entry, because the sponsors would love to say that they've had 200 entrants for their contest instead of just 100 and then some check logs or people that didn't enter anything at all. So I think some people, sometimes they're worried about, I would enter and then I would be at the bottom of the table. But there's no stigma about that. It just means that, yeah, you're only able to be active for a couple of hours. Say in the contest at the weekend, I referred to the UK EIDX. I think I was only active myself for 2 hours, and the minimum time for on their shortest category was 12 hours. So I'm sure when I look at the results, I'll be somewhere near the bottom of the table. But yeah, it doesn't matter. I've still there been taking part. I think maybe the only time when you would want to submit a check log instead of a real entry was if that you knew that you were, say, breaking or not following the rules of the contest. To say if it was a low power contest and for some reason you were operating high power, or there was a rule that said that you couldn't change band every 10 minutes, but you'd been hopping back and forth everywhere. So maybe that would be the good criteria to submit a check log. But otherwise, yeah, please submit a full entry, and yes, see your name in lights and download your participation certificate.
Okay, thank you very much, Lee. Next question, someone watching the RSGB's channel on BATC website. Martin, MW0GBQ. Just to confirm, serial number is your incremental number of contacts starting from 1. I guess that's a question, just checking.
Yes, Martin, that's right. So your first contact would be number 1, and then you just go on from there, number 2, number 3. So there have been, say, some, I think, VHF contests where that were on multi-bands, that if you were starting again on a different band, you may then start again from 0. So please do check the rules on that. But for the majority of contests that are either single band or multi-band on HF, if there's just, say, you operating by yourself, start from 1 and then just carry on 2, 3, 4, and we can race each other to 1,000. Good luck.
Good thinking. Thank you. Next question from Ian, G0CNN. Says, great presentation. An observation. Choosing your category and subcategory can be a way of making the most of your station and being more successful in the results table, he thinks.
Absolutely. Yep. And I think I've been noting this myself. I think, say, just a couple of weeks ago, there was the biggest annual RTTY radio teletype contest, and with my station, it's not 100-foot towers. I entered in the low power category and seemed to have done quite well. But when I consider the scores that were being achieved by the big guns in the high power category, which is where the more senior guys tend to migrate to, eventually, I wouldn't have been able to do quite as well. So yeah, if there's a particular niche or you have, say, antennas that maybe work well. Maybe if you've got, say, great 15-meter antenna, you could try a 15-meter category, and then it doesn't matter to say if your 40-meter or 80-meter antenna doesn't work so well. So yeah, absolutely, yeah, do look at the different categories and look at the results. Yes, see what everyone did last year, and then you can get a good idea for where you'll be able to shine. So yeah, great point.
Thanks, Lee. And Ian. Stuart G3RXQ says, hi Lee, the USA has the very successful contest university events. Do you think that the RSGB could do something similar?
Indeed, and a little while ago, a few years ago, it did. Say for several years at the RSGB convention, that there was a contest, a university stream. So I think if there may be interest in that in the future, or sufficient interest, it could return in some shape or form. So I was happy to be part of that in the past, although maybe in those days we didn't have all of the online facilities like we have with tonight at 8. But yes, maybe in some shape or form, Contest University could return to the UK. So yeah, we'll look forward to hearing more about that.
Okay, well, if you have a feeling about that, I'll right at the end of the program, I'll be giving you a contact where you can give us feedback as well. So next is from John Harrison. I don't have your call sign. I'm sorry, John, if you have one. If I could get to grips with PC logging, I would love to try from my 40-foot garden with QRP, but it's logging that lets him down every time. Any thoughts, Lee?
Okay, so if you're adamant that the computer logging isn't for you, well, I would say please try to persevere with it if you can. You could still operate with a paper log, and so say manually keep a duplicate sheet, a dupe sheet as it was, and then you could type it up, or even ask a friend to type it up for you afterwards and submit a log that way. So I think if you don't want to do computer logging, it doesn't have to exclude you from taking part. Take part any way you can, even with the paper log, and then maybe you can get some assistance afterwards just for typing it up and getting it submitted. And if it's a short garden and with QRP, it's still possible. So yeah, I look forward to working John on the bands.
Yeah, and John just actually adds as a PS to that, just such a shame that contesters get themselves a bad name with poor operating practice sometimes. 80 metre CW contest started tonight and they just walked all over existing QSOs. And certainly this is something I hear as a chairman of a club, and some people are very keen on contesting in our club and some just aren't, and they do sometimes resent contesting because this sort of thing does happen. What are your feelings about that?
Okay, so I won't admit that things like that don't happen. Although I would say hope, and my own experience is that it should be in the minority. And if someone is, so say, just calling on top of someone else, then they won't have a clear frequency themselves, and they won't be doing themselves any favours. But certainly I would hope that, say, certainly in the likes of the 80 metre contest, that there should certainly be enough room on the bands for everyone. And certainly in my experience and what I do, yeah, it doesn't take but a few seconds to send out a QRL question mark and listen before transmitting. So sometimes if a contest station has a big signal, maybe they just might not hear a weaker station. That does sometimes happen. Also with filtering as well, sometimes maybe if a contester has a very narrow radio filter on, then it may appear to them that there's no one on channel, and they may have missed someone that is immediately adjacent. But I can't condone, and yeah, it's not good practice when this happens. So if it does happen, yeah, please call it out. And we do, as a contesting community, we want to be a good community. We want to, say, share the spectrum well with everybody else. Sometimes the bands are busy. I always like compare it to if I go on the M6 on a Monday morning, I can't expect to have the motorway to myself. Why is it all clogged up with cars? Sometimes that's say similar in a contest, but yeah, hopefully the majority of the time, and from my experience, the majority of contesters should be playing by the rules. And I'm sorry if that's not been anyone's personal experience.
Yeah, that's right. You just have to have respect for other operators in whatever field of amateur radio that we do, haven't we? Just one more point, I think, now, really. We've gone through most of people's questions. Richard G4HGI says, it's good fun, it's an observation really, it's good fun if you can find a local club or contest group near to you to join. There are plenty of these out there that will help you to improve operating and station performance. So it isn't just the contesting itself, it can help you assess your station, can't you, and improve it?
Yes, absolutely. And if you can say join with groups, that they can share the benefit of their experience. And when I started out, it was good to be taken under another group's wing, and then find out how it works, learn some strategies, and also at the same time, it's great for friendship. It's a good bonding experience, and make some good friends and good memories. So spot on, Richard, and we'll see you at the convention in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, thank you, Richard, and thanks to all of you who've given us questions and made comments as well. And of course, thanks very much to you, Lee, as well. I'm sure you've inspired many to give it a go. I just want to ask one final question, really, because it can be quite intimidating, I think, for people who are not into contesting, how to start. I know you've gone through the building blocks and the basics of how you start and do logging and things, but is there a way of just starting just by, switch on your radio, maybe you hear a friend from a local club or someone you know who's operating. Is it easy to give them a point, to just sort of dabble and to touch your feet in the water that way? Is that possible?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you do have friends and they say, I'm going to be operating this weekend, if you prefer only to contact to start with, someone you know, or someone that is going to be is going to be patient with you, then certainly give that a whirl for your first contact. But then just to turn the dial a little, and then after your first contact, you can go hopefully then and confidently make your second and your third. So that's a good piece of advice there, David. You can give that a try, but I'd say that any contester, they want your contact, they want your points. So please, if you are just tuning around the bands, you hear someone calling Seek Your Contest, have a listen, or other people calling in, then just call in as well and see if they want to work you.
Brilliant. All right. Well, Lee, once again, thank you very much indeed for tonight's presentation. I'm sure lots of other people give contesting a go as a result of your talk. Thanks very much.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Tammy. Thanks, everyone.
There we go. And that concludes this webinar. And thanks once again to our guest presenter, Lee Volante, G0MTN, and also to the team who helped put this series together behind the scenes. As I mentioned earlier, the RSGB recently held a poll for new and returning licensees to find out what they'd most like to learn about. And as well as contesting, antenna were high on the list. So our next Tonight at 8 webinar will be an introduction to antennas with Colin Summers, MM0OPX. Now, if you'd like to see details of future webinars or watch recordings of previous programs in the series, please visit rsgb.org/webinars, where you can also send us comments and feedback. And if you subscribe to the RSGB's YouTube channel, you'll be notified of all upcoming Tonight at 8 webinars, as well as other new videos and presentations from the Society on a wide range of amateur radio topics. And finally, a reminder about the RSGB Convention, which, as you heard from Lee, is happening very soon now in Milton Keynes from the 13th to 15th of October. You'll find expert presentations, practical workshops, discussion forums, special interest groups and RSGB committees to talk to. And there's a great social side too. You can visit for just a day or stay the whole weekend. To see the full programme and book, please visit rsgb.org/convention. The link is on your screen now. But note that the online booking closes on the October the 8th, so not long. Hope to see you there. Until next time, this is David G7ERP signing off and clear. Bye-bye.